So, continuing our discussions on mindfulness meditation, the session today is on mindfulness of emotions and feelings. And the meanings of those sort of intertwine and dance together in across many dimensions, and we'll explore that in a little to a certain extent. So, the second foundation of mindfulness, after the foundation of mindfulness of body in the body, inwardly and outwardly, and of the breath, is the foundation of mindfulness of feelings. And it says in the texts, the one who is practicing becomes aware of the feelings that are present, of the feelings in the feelings, which means to really sense them deeply inwardly and outwardly. And initially becomes aware this is a pleasant feeling, this is an unpleasant feeling, this is a neutral feeling. And you can hear in this the spirit of mindfulness and loving awareness, which is witnessing, observing what's happening. This is pleasant, this is unpleasant, unhooked from judging or reactivity or trying to make it a certain way. This is the way it is. Praise and blame, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, joy and sorrow, birth and death. These opposites weave together to create the experience of human incarnation. And mindfulness, loving awareness, says, this is an unpleasant experience. This is a pleasant one. This is a neutral one. Our usual habit is reactivity. Pleasant. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, how do I get more? How do I get it to stay? Unpleasant. Oh, fear, resistance. I don't want this. Turning away. Neutral, which we have quite a bit. Oh, it's time to go back to sleep or back to my little screen, and distract myself. And so all of them, when not acknowledged, can put us in reactivity or put us to sleep in some way. These are called the primary feelings in the Buddhist psychology from which this taxonomy is drawn. They give rise to the secondary feelings, which is what we're talking about now. The words pointing to both feeling and emotion. And that is the stream of experience that happens with us. Just as we have a river of physical sensations and sense experiences that arise moment to moment in consciousness, so too there is a river of feelings. There is also a river of thoughts, and we'll get to explore that next week. And people sense their feelings in different ways. Some people sense their feelings with their mind and somehow associate it with thought. Some people sense their feelings with their heart more. There's a kind of welling of different forms of emotion, anger or fear or love or longing or delight. Many people sense their feelings primarily in their body, and some can sense in all of these, but often people only have one of these channels open at a time. And to become more mindful of feeling requires them in some way also to begin to expand that capacity to sense feeling as it arises. And we have to admit many of the feelings we have are unconscious until we notice. Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas said, "At the Supreme Court level where I work, 90% of our decisions are made on the basis of what we feel about things, our feelings. And the other 10% is our rationalization, where we use our mind to justify what we feel." And if it's true on the Supreme Court, it's pretty much the basis of how we relate to the world, how we feel toward it. And that phrasing suggests a leaning in with our sensing organs, our radar, our antennae, our compassion neurons. So one of the first things that I can do is teach people how to be mindful of feelings so they're not caught up so much in entanglement and reactivity and grasping and all those things that make the suffering of life. So one of the first things that I can do is normalize feeling and reassure folks that whatever they're feeling is just a feeling, and it's human, and it's normal. So when I was a much younger man, a boy, actually, I was living in Madison, Wisconsin, attending the University of Madison, Wisconsin, and there was a knock on my door. I had made myself vulnerable to armed robbery, and there it was, an invasion. About 3 minutes later, my shaking hand closed the door, and I noted to myself something like, well, that was a scary experience. There was fear just then. And it wasn't a bad feeling or I was supposed to be too cool to sweat it. It just was what it was. It was like going to Disneyland and taking the e-ticket ride. It's the kind of most extreme ride. Without telling myself a story about why and who and what next, without taking the time to do that, it just was what it was in the moment. In our first year of training as a mindfulness meditation teacher, we're handed a list of 52 different basic psychophysical states through which humans can experience their reality. And from those states, there's a list of 500 emotions, alphabetized. So sometimes when I talk about emotions, I'll just pick a letter, like C, and we'll go calm, capable, cheerful, captivated, cautious, chagrin, challenged, childish, clever, cold-hearted, contemptful, contrite. It's an amazing source of noting possibilities to look at these lists, and perhaps I'll send you one or two of those on my weekly email to you. And we could read on, and we realize that the literal description of the river of feelings is true. We have this capacity to feel. It's very rich, and yet it's not generally part of our education. As kids, we learn reading and writing in school, but we don't learn about this primary human experience. As a matter of fact, we're often encouraged to suppress it. So mindfulness invites us, loving awareness, we use those terms interchangeably at times, to begin to attend to and learn how to live in more conscious relation to feelings. And just as I quoted last week in my talk about the body, again, here's Pema Chodron. It's very helpful to realize that the emotions that we have, the negativity and positivity, are exactly what we need to be fully human, fully awake, and fully alive. So this is where we awaken. We also pick up feelings from other people. The nervous system of our bodies is tuned to one another in what used to be called limbic resonance or mood contagion. In this latest century, there are theories and research around mirror neurons, transcending our individual boundaries. Intersubjective experience. You put a violin on the table and someone else plays a violin, and the strings on the one sitting on the table resonate with it. Thich Nhat Hanh articulated it as interbeing. We resonate with one another. We even resonate with the culture. The societal mood right now is inviting fear into the culture, and it resonates in that primitive part of everybody's brain, and it can't be helped because we're all wired together. The good thing is that mindfulness or loving awareness can hold it all. The historical Buddha taught about sati sapanjana, the additional defining factor that Scott Bishop added, if you remember from session 1, that mindfulness also includes clear comprehension, with freedom from hindrances, a mindful awareness, a loving awareness that invites an appropriate response. From a Mary Oliver poem, meditation is old and honorable, so why should I sit quietly every morning of my life on the hillside looking into the shining world? Why should I not? Because properly attended to, delight as well as havoc is only a suggestion, only a beginning. And she goes on, can one be passionate about the just, the sublime, the holy, and yet commit no labor to its cause? I don't think so. You must act, be ignited, or gone. One of my favorite poets. And so there's an invitation both to feel inwardly and outwardly, to sense with mindfulness, and also to allow that feeling to inspire or to inform a wise action, a wise response. That's another part of mindfulness. The first step in guiding people to understand feelings is simply teaching them to know what they feel, helping, inviting them to actually experience what they feel. When we notice feelings, pleasant or not or neutral, rising into our consciousness, we get to take the moment to sit with it and see what we're believing or what stories the feeling is arising from. Opening to fully feeling allows us to know the mental discourse that accompanies the feeling. My partner Meadow and I talk frequently about her work as a therapeutic time masseuse and how, as she works to heal other people's damaged bodies, over the years, hers is becoming unwell. So I notice I have this gnawing ache in my heart, a ruminating sense of nausea and impending something. It bothers me that she suffers and that I have to hear about it without having a good solution. So recently it rose up and then again and again. And I thought to sit with it with some curiosity. When I began to lean into my inner experience, in all that was tumultuously going on in there, there was a greater honesty and clarity because I took the time to begin to pay attention and listen and then name it, remembering to trust that awareness could tune into my feelings. Fear. Fear about Meadow and our future. And as I opened up to it, my sense of suffering also increased. It widened. My Meadow's difficulties, the sufferings of other people, the pain of her hard labor and that of her coworkers, and the suffering of those whose bodies they work with. The other illnesses and uncertainty in the world became visible, and then I began to experience a welling up, not just of fear, but of compassion. And a kind of relief broke through me with that compassion. Now, as I think about her during the day, a greater sense of care and trust grows. It's a more gracious heart. And I think I become a more loving person because I know what I'm feeling. I get to be more direct with her. I'm less afraid. And with that, I realize that I can begin to tolerate the experiences that are there within me through frequent practices of opening, inquiry, acceptance, compassion, and self-compassion. Then metta like the sun to all beings who suffer. So that's a description of somebody's process of learning to feel what they feel. And the kind of questions when somebody doesn't have much connection with feelings are, well, where do I feel that in my body? What does the constellation of sensations associated with my feelings feel like? Now close your eyes for just a moment. What do you notice in your body? Or do you feel a little numb? Where do you feel that in your body? As you start to feel that, what images come? What stories come? And the images and stories sometimes invite the feeling to come more fully. Become present for the feelings and begin to notice and sense what's around it. You may open your eyes if you wish. And there's something very true of that because what's beautiful, if you look into the tradition of Buddhist psychology and other frameworks, is that the kinds of feelings that we deal with are spelled out in articulate and beautiful ways. And one of the most common lists, one of the many in Buddhist psychology, is the list of hindrances that, that arise in our awareness. These are hindrances or obstacles, barriers to clarity. There's nothing we have to do about them. We just have to notice. Oh, caught in that one, trapped in that one. And so there's the hindrance of the grasping, wanting mind. In the classical Buddhism, that's desire. In India, they say that when a pickpocket meets a saint, he only looks to see what's in his pockets. He can't see the saintliness because that desire blinds him. And you go in some room and you look around and you think, well, who's somebody I want to be with, that I want to sit with? And who don't I want to be with? And who don't I care about? There's this scanning that desire makes, where we get attached to our perception, locked in. and so we can't see clearly. Or the second hindrance that comes, you're sitting there trying to meditate. So the first one is desire, or I want this and I want that, I want this state. And when I leave here, I want to go and have this to eat, and I hope this happens. And you get filled with anything but what your experience is. The second one, which is resistance, is, well, no, I don't like this. I'm afraid of it. I'm angry. It's the pushing away of experience. So that you're sitting there and all of a sudden, I want a different experience. This is not what I like. This is not supposed to be happening. I'm afraid of this. And so again, there's a reactivity, and you sit with being caught in anger or judgment or fear. In the classic terminology, it's ill will. So just as I was caught, and when I'm afraid about our future, there's pushing away. There's an aversion that mindfulness gets to notice. Or you can sit and be caught in restlessness, and it comes, and you get really restless. And what do you do when you're restless? You start to become mindful. This is desire. This is grasping. This is anger. Oh, this is restlessness. Restlessness feels like this. In the classic sense, restlessness is a hindrance they call laziness or insensibility. And you let the field of loving awareness become big enough to tolerate it, to allow it, to hold it, to name it gently. Restless, restless. Oh, I hate this. Hating, hating. I want it to go away. Wanting, wanting. Oh my gosh, I'm really learning to do this, huh? Pride, pride. And you start to track the feelings that are present as they are without trying to change them. Or sleepiness, as we talked about. It gets normalized. This is fine. It's natural to be sleepy at times because you're tired or because you're a human being. Or doubt. I can't do this. It's too hard. It's the wrong day. It's the wrong practice. I don't have enough time. I'm not worthy enough to awaken. Or whatever you think about yourself. I'll never live a more conscious life. I'm doubting myself in all kinds of ways. Or you doubt other things in your life. Or you doubt the teachers. I mean, who are these people anyway? What do they know? And then with these feelings, because hindrances are born out of our minds and beg for attempted resolution through elaboration and storytelling and sheltering in a narrative, other difficult emotions like fear, shame, sorrow, longing, guilt, anxiety, they all come up. Some of us can expect that attachment in the strong form of addiction might come up as we're sitting in meditation. Or jealousy will come. Now, there's an interesting emotion. And the whole construct of ideas arises, but underneath this feeling is not being enough and wanting something else. Or the feelings of hurt. We've all been hurt, wounded, profoundly hurt. Or the feelings of anger or even rage. And what do you do with them? This again is a Zen teacher, Carl Fried Durkheim. He says, the person who is really on the way, on the path, falls upon hard times, will not, as consequence, turn to those friends who offer them refuge and comfort and encourage their old self to survive. Rather, they will seek out those who faithfully and inexorably help them to risk themselves so that they may endure the difficulty and pass courageously through it. Only to the extent that a person exposes themselves over and over again to difficulty and even annihilation, he says, and this has to be the right context, by the way, can that which is indestructible be found within them. In this daring lies dignity and the spirit of true awakening. So there's something truly liberating about being able to stay in the presence of strong emotions and loving awareness and say, yes, This too is part of being human. But it's not just those painful and difficult ones, because as you know, many of us can be very loyal to our suffering. But the positive emotions can cause a thrill. When we start to feel joy, is that okay? When we start to feel rapture, or we start to feel love, or delight, or ease, or bliss, do we deserve that? Not long ago at my job, a student in crisis was saying to me, I don't know what I'm feeling. And I said, as I've done oodles of times, well, settle down, take a breath, sense your body. He paused, as recommended, and he said, I live such a busy life, and I'm always trying to do things. So many balls in the air. Sounds familiar. I said, settle down, feel what life is like right now. He said, well, I'm happy to be here right now in this boring, nothing happening moment. I said, okay, just tune in. What are you sensing? He took a moment and he said, oh, his eyes changed, like this was sort of unfamiliar. And he said, I think it's contentment. So he hadn't had a moment of contentment in a conscious way, probably in months. Now, what feelings need in order to be acknowledged wisely is respect. They're very powerful. You might remember the story of that small group of American soldiers in Iraq who were surrounded by people during the war, shouting and screaming. And the officer, the lieutenant, at some point, instinctually knowing that this could get out of hand, he said, take a knee. And they all turned their rifles to the ground and brought one knee to the ground. And this was in front of a great mosque in the holy city of Najaf. And when they did that, everyone around became quiet. All these people were so angry at them. And then they withdrew without anybody being hurt. It was a gesture of respect for their feelings. Emotions also want your respect for whatever power they have in them, whatever delight, whatever wound they carry. Can you bow to this too and say, yes, yes, this too can be held in loving awareness? With practice, we get to build a sense of trust or confidence that the space of awareness and compassion is big enough to hold it all. And I've learned this again and again. Whatever that feeling is, space can hold it. Compassion can hold this. It's a beautiful thing to know this in your heart. Please try it one of these times that something scary or anger arises or grief. Sit in the middle of it for as long as it lasts and see what happens to it. Believe me, it's totally possible to sit in the midst of all of it. A good thought or listing exercise is asking what range of emotions are okay for you and what's outside of your comfort zone. And the most beautiful and powerful thing is that we can learn to be present for them. We can turn toward fear, leaning in. Go to the places that scare you when you're ready, not right away, and take your seat in the middle and bid them be present, like the then Bodhisattva Siddhartha Gautama invited Mara and his trickery, and learn that you can do this too as a human being. Or as Hafiz says with loneliness, don't surrender your loneliness so quickly. Let it cut more deeply. Let it season you as few ingredients can. Or the broken heart, where Oscar Wilde writes so simply, hearts are meant to be broken. So allow yourself to be present with the sorrow, the fear, whatever. And then here's what helps. You find it in your body. You're invited to say, where do I sense this in my body? Can I hold this feeling? Whatever it is that's difficult, especially with compassion. Or if it's a beautiful feeling, can you hold this with joy? Where's the center of this feeling? Sometimes that's helpful to go right to the center. What happens if you let this feeling open and expand? There I am, I'm sitting with anger. Teacher says, all right, you're going to be angry, let it happen. And then it turns into rage and all these other emotions without judging it. This from Elizabeth Taylor. The problem with people who have no vices is that generally you can be sure that they're going to have some pretty annoying virtues. So we have these ideas about how we're supposed to be, the perfectionist ideas. I shouldn't feel this. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't feel fear, and so on. And the repression of that actually knocks us up and keeps us from being fully alive. And a beautiful thing is that directly with our mindfulness teachings, we can expand what neuroscience calls our window of tolerance. You expand the heart to be able to be present for it all. So the point in all this is not to get rid of feelings or to have some notion of right feelings, because grief needs to be felt. And the outrage sometimes, that injustice is what needs to be felt. It actually inspires us in some possible ways, powerful ways. But that's not the end of the story. Feelings, that's the beautiful thing. No feeling is final. They're leading us to some greater understanding. This from Molly Ivins, who's the great New York Times columnist, humorist, and considered the Texas firecracker as a voice for justice. She says, "So keep fighting for freedom and justice, beloveds, but don't forget to have fun doing it. Be outrageous. Rejoice in all the oddities freedom can produce. And when you get through celebrating the sheer joy of a good fight, be sure to tell those who follow how much fun it was." So you start to feel that your capacity to enter into life grows with your capacity to be open to the range of feelings and to bring them to what you do. Mindfulness, it's like this. Anger is like this. Longing is like this. Joy, bliss, it's like this. You just bow to each, and they change like the weather. In fact, when you get really still, just as in the body training that we were doing in the previous sessions, what seems a solid pain in the body was not pain. Pain's the word. It was throbbing, tingling, pinpricks, fire. It dissolves into a whole field of changing sensations. And the body itself is a field of changing sensations. So interestingly enough, when you get quiet and you really pay attention, feelings don't last that long. I might think, but I was angry all day. I was sad all week. It feels like they last a long time. I've been depressed for so long. But you sit there and you notice that you're sad. And if you name it sad, 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 sad for a time, and become mindful as we're training to do, sad, sad, and sense it in the body, sad, sad. It moves like a wave through mind and body. After about 15 or 30 seconds, you might feel an aversion. I wish this would go away. And then, okay, you notice wishing has come as a feeling. Oh, I wish I weren't so sad. And then you notice wishing. And I hate this sadness. Oh, hating, hating. But I'm so sad. Sad, sad, sad. I'm afraid this is going to last all week. Fear. Fear arises. Fear, fear. And I can be with it. Okay, confidence arises. Sad, sad again. And I'm not doing bad. Pride, pride. And you start to realize as you track them that these emotions are alive and ever changing in the body, in the mind, and in the heart, that our window of tolerance expands. And we can get this increasing confidence that we can be here with what's here. And that's contagious. So often people ask me what's changed over the years. I've been doing all these practices since I was a kid. So what's different? I sometimes think of it as there's just less lag time between being caught unaware. There's an emotion there, and in some way pushing away or avoiding. And oh, okay, this again. And a question that served me a lot. There's a story of a well-known sage who says that the one thing that we can ask ourselves that really opens us up is, what are you unwilling to feel? Because in most moments, If we're at all unconscious, it's because in some way we're pushing away something that's part of the nature of things. So, in that spirit of all inner weather, here's a poem by Dinah Falls. It's called Allow. There's no controlling life. Try try corralling a lightning bolt containing a tornado. Dam a stream, and it will create a new channel. Resist, and the tide will sweep you off your feet. Allow, and grace will carry you to higher ground. The only safety lies in letting it all in, the wild and the weak, fear, fantasies, failure, and success. When loss rips off the doors of the heart, or sadness veils your vision with despair, practice becomes simply bearing the truth. In the choice to let go of your known way of being, the whole world is revealed with new eyes. And what I love about this so much is so much of the stuck place of who we are, that kind of small self, is really organized around the way we don't feel, or be with, or open to what's here. So the more that we're able to allow a feeling, in letting that lag time decrease gently, carefully, wisely, reconnecting, what it does is reveals a whole new sense of being. And so whether it's shame or whether it's rage or other things, after a while, rather than dwelling in them, it's possible to shift both thought and feeling to loving kindness, or to a sense of well-being or self-care, or focus on inner peace or a kind of confidence or gratitude. Perhaps some of you in the room don't know what a fado is, but it's a beautiful kind of heartfelt melancholy genre that comes from Iberia, from Spain, and Portugal, that region. And I think it comes from the Roma and Gypsy tradition, the little bit that I've heard. And forgive me if I've got it wrong. But this is a poem from Jane Hirschfield. It's called The Fado, and she sets the scene. She says, with a sleight of hand, a magician reaches close and lifts a quarter from inside a girl's ear, and from her hands takes a dove she didn't know was there. Which amazes more, you may wonder, the quarter's murmur against the thumb, or the dove's seduced silence? That they magically appeared, or that in Portugal, this same half-stopped moment, it's almost dawn, and a woman in a wheelchair is singing a fado that puts every life in the room on one pan of a scale and itself in the other, and the copper bowls balance. So let's take 5 minutes for self-care. The invitation to stand and stretch, walk, grab a beverage, whatever. I'll ring the bell to bring us back, and we'll practice. So this evening we're going to practice a mindfulness of emotions meditation. Most of it is the core practice that you all should have at least roaming around in your heart by the end of this course. The sort of grounding and establishing mindfulness part. It'll sound familiar. I'll ring the bell again to uh, begin guiding the meditation and invite you to open your eyes to close the meditation. The practice will take about 9 or 10 minutes. It might take us really close to 8 o'clock. So I'm sorry if I'm going to dribble over for a moment or two if there's any conversation. So let yourself sit in an upright yet comfortable way. When you're ready, close your eyes and soften your gaze, or soften your gaze. Notice if there's any obvious tension in the body that you could release easily, and do so. Let the eyes and face be soft. Relax the shoulders and let the arms and hands rest easily. Let the belly be soft and the breath natural. And let the heart be soft as well, to receive whatever arises with kindness and compassion. Now, with this embodied presence, bring awareness to the breath moving through your body, entering and exiting as the breath joins with the larger element air. Air moving in, air moving out, air moving through. Take a few moments to rest and savor the presence of the earth and the air, always with you. Feel each breath, and as you allow it, invite a sense of calm and ease to grow. Return gently to the next breath whenever you notice that the attention has wandered. Wandering is a natural process, no judgment. Let all other experiences, sounds, sensations, thoughts, and images rise and fall like waves of the ocean around the breath. After a time, become mindful of any emotions that call your attention. You can bring the same mindful, loving awareness to them as you have to the breath. When an emotion arises, letting go of attention to the breath and receiving the emotion kindly, it can be helpful to name it softly. Sad, sad, or joy, joy, bored, bored, or anxious or excited. As you attend to the emotion, notice carefully where you feel it in your body. Also notice how it feels as a constellation of sensations. How does it respond to kind awareness? Does it dissolve or get stronger? Does it change into another emotion? And notice this too. You are the space of loving awareness that can kindly notice emotions as they come and go. If you feel resistance to contacting the emotion or it feels very strong, notice the story that the mind tells along with the feelings in your body. Acknowledge it kindly. Then let this be in the background and again bring a gentle presence to the emotion. When the emotion is changed or dissolved, return back to the awareness of the breath for a time. When something distracts you or the mind wanders, notice that distraction, wandering, and kindly bring your attention back to the breath. Now you can include emotions in your loving awareness as well as attending to the breath and body. They come and go, and you are becoming the calm, steady witness, acknowledging them without getting caught by each one. Remaining in mindful, loving awareness, you become gradually more open, balanced, and free. So as we'll do for each of our course meetings, let's take the last few minutes that we have for any questions or comments you might have for me or the community. And feel free to raise your Zoom hand, your real hand, or just open your microphone and speak.
Thank you, Michael. I really like the idea that you painted for us that compassion is the container that can then hold whatever arises. So thank you.
Indeed. Our compassion is it's a force that we own, and at the same time we share it. We share it with the Buddha nature. That makes it a very special space, a space that's continuous, across individuals. Yeah. Got another minute if somebody has any reflection on mindfulness of feelings and emotions. A last reflection on practice, now that we've just walked out of a very quick practice. Well, watching my feelings, my emotions, I'll have to say that there's a deep gratitude rising in my consciousness, um, an affection and a great thank you for making my Tuesday evenings special like this. It's literally heartwarming, and an amazing opportunity that you provide me with. So let's put our palms together for a dedication. Let us dedicate all the value accrued through prayer, contemplation, meditation, and practice for the benefit of all beings and to the incomparable expanse of totality. Be so well. Have a wonderful week. Sweet dreams.